One man. Goodbye. Hello, Heisman.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. Oh, no, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Three Technique and our What's Next series here in the, well, cold, dark off season in some places of the country. I've got Casey from Herd Bros joining us to talk Group of Five football today. Casey, good to have you on the show. We've been planning to do this for quite some time.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but I appreciate you having me on the show.
Man, it's so good to get to talk G5 football with you. And this last season, I think, provided quite the entertainment for those of us that live and breathe G5 football. You answered this question off the top of the article, which, you know, if you're listening to this after the fact, watching this on YouTube, we do have Casey's work posted over on our Substack. Would highly encourage you to go take a look at that. But with two teams, not just one, but two teams making the college football playoff out of the G5 ranks, talk to me about kind of your thought process as the season was progressing to that point, and, you know, ultimately what you liked and saw from the G5 getting two teams into the final 12 team field.
Well, it was quite the season for the Group of Five. The national exposure that came from the fact that the possibility even existed for multiple teams to make the playoffs was something that I enjoyed. And so keeping track of that throughout the season, as things progressed, you kind of saw that it was going to be likely the American champion would be guaranteed a spot. I mean, JMU was hanging around there, had a good record, and they were in the discussion, of course. And actually they were higher ranked in the AP and coaches poll, even though the selection committee did not have them ranked at the time. But the national exposure was great. And then when the tiebreaker scenario started to come into play for the ACC, everybody started saying, well, wait a minute, it's possible that the Group of Five could get two bids to the college football playoffs, which, because of the way ESPN had been promoting things all season, you know this, a lot of people know this, but ESPN was literally acting like it was a Group of Five spot, which now exists because changes have been made, but previously that did not exist, which is why we got two in. So it was just really fun to kind of track the Group of Five this year, because there was a lot of conversation on a national scale about the teams that were really in contention. North Texas, I mean, as far as football is concerned, you don't really see a lot of North Texas on national TV. You don't hear them in national discussions. The exposure that they got this year alone is going to propel them into the future. JMU has had some success, but because of transition rules that shouldn't exist, you know, this was their first season to where they were really in a position to be in the playoffs, and they got more exposure from that. So I just, the exposure, and even on my account where like I literally just like cover the Group of Five, Group of Six now, just it kind of took off in November and December because of the amount of discussion that was happening around the Group of Five. So that was the fun part to see.
Yeah, man, your channel, your coverage really has exploded over the last, year and change, right? The content that you've been putting out has obviously drawn a lot of eyeballs, not only because it's great content, but also I think the narrative over this last two seasons has shifted into much more of a debate, right? Should there be some sort of separate league that the power schools, the power conferences get to play? We know the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to play bully in the sand pit. But for the rest of us that just enjoy watching fun programs, great traditions, and really good football, it's been awesome to see those metrics and the exposure there certainly climb. You mentioned North Texas and the season that they had this last year, not on a lot of people's radars. I was there in the press box for the UNT South Florida game, and it was a who's who up in the press box. To your point, like there was everybody from the national media that could be there was there, and I just couldn't remember the last time that we had that much excitement around a non-Ohio State Texas game in quite some time. So with all of that, we've got March Madness going on right now, and the last 2 years you've had a lot of chalk in the sense that kind of the programs, the bigger programs have won those games on the college basketball arena, right? College football, though, it seems like maybe it's going the other way, where the transfer portal, NIL, spreading out the resources, spreading out the talent, and allowing teams like North Texas, like JMU, to have a chance to make a college football playoff run, to do something really special. Where do you kind of find yourself as far as rooting interests go with the health of college football and the transfer portal?
As rooting interests, as in just the enjoyment of the sport?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like where are your priorities with all of that?
The transfer portal has its pros and cons. I think as a fan of a specific team, it can be very frustrating. If you look at Marshall, they went 10-3 in 2024, won the Sun Belt Conference. And I think, given the season that the Sun Belt had, probably should have been ranked to finish the season. I think Marshall finished like 26th or 27th in the polls, but I digress. Charles Huff leaves the morning after the championship game, basically, and goes to Southern Miss, who was the worst team in the Sun Belt. Yep. There's a lot of things that happened there, but because he left, then every player enters the transfer portal. Marshall loses all of its production and goes into 2025 with the worst returning production out of any team in the country. So you look at the SP Plus preseason rankings, a lot of that is built on the returning production. So, of course, Marshall was way at the bottom of that. So as a fan of an individual team, it's very frustrating because you don't remember players from year to year. You don't know anybody on the team. You have no idea going into game one what's going to happen. So that part is probably the biggest con. The pro, which is what you mentioned, is that any team, in theory, is capable of putting together a championship roster. Now, that's going to look different, depending on the conference you're in. The championship roster might look a little bit different, but you look at what Indiana has done with Curt Cignetti. He's a great coach, but the guys that he brought from JMU were some of his top producers in the college football playoffs. Mm-hmm. They were the ones scoring the touchdowns in those games. So, and they even came from further back, some of them, a division lower. So, this idea that only blue chip talent can win a championship is now out the door. Indiana kind of busted that this year. I'm not necessarily suggesting that a group of 5 or group of 6 school can just throw together, a God squad and go out and win it. But the reality is, if you're good at evaluating talent like Curt Cignetti is, you can get 3 stars and you can put them together on a team. And as long as they play well, especially out of the gate to create some momentum, you don't know what's going to happen. And I think that a lot of people say, well, college basketball is different. The group of 5 in football, it's just not the same. They're different talent playing out there on the field. But then the talent that is out on the field for the Power 4 teams now is the guys that were on the group of 5 teams the previous season, right? So it's frustrating as a fan at times, but also anything can happen. And I love that there does seem to be a little bit more disparity. I mean, you're still going to have your blue bloods. You're still going to have the teams that can pay a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And a lot of money in the Big 12 goes further than it does in the SEC. Texas Tech showed that this year. Mm-hmm. But I mean, changes need to happen, right? But it's an interesting time for college football. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Was talking with a college golfer at a wedding last night about the transfer portal, NIL, all of it. It was fascinating to get his perspective. Obviously, we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show. We have that discourse on Twitter, pretty much on a weekly basis still, as the powers that be try and figure it out. It's an ever-changing landscape. There's no doubt about that. Interesting question that I put in the doc, and you had a fantastic answer for this question. Was really geared towards you in the first place because you're kind of the creator of it. Mr. Beast threw around an idea, right, that went viral about supporting his hometown East Carolina Pirates team with just a silly amount of cash, right, to win a championship.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't realize is you were actually the one that jump-started that idea in the first place.
I will take credit for that. But also, my specific post was something along the lines of, I saw somebody say somewhere that Mr. Beast should do this, right? So that somebody somewhere has to get some credit for it. But it was that he should fund a group of 5, group of 6 team to win a national championship. That post went viral. Tons of fans were like, pick me kind of thing in the comments. You actually had coaches from group of 5 teams quoting the post saying, like, partner with us, Mr. Beast, which I thought was, I mean, honestly, I thought that was really unique. New Mexico was all over it, for example. So, which, by the way, I think they'd be a fun one. But ECU is the one that made sense, right? Because that's where he lives. That's where he's from. That's where his whole setup is. So, and he's partnered with them in different ways before. So, I kind of said it as a joke, but at the same time, I actually think it would be really interesting content.
And with that, do you think that would be would that be interesting content for the first maybe like literally one season, and then we'd watch the donors at the SEC and Big Ten schools take over? Like, would that almost be pushing the snowball over the hill, and would that ruin it for you, or would you still like to see something like that happen just for the experience?
I don't. That's a good question. I think that, number one, it doesn't really fit his style of content, which I did mention in my answer to the article. But, if he were to find a way to sustain it, he'd have to find a way to mix in his content to make it kind of worthwhile, even if somebody else started pitching in to kind of drown out the money there. Yeah. But I still think the home run idea for Mr. Beast, if he wants to get involved with college sports, college football in general, is to take one player from each team and have them compete just like he does in all of his other videos, where it's, I got 100 people, from all these different ages, and they're going to compete, and the last one standing gets $1 million, right? So in theory, you could get one player from every single, I would say, just group of 6 team, right? You got 70 of them now. The Power 4 doesn't need any more money. So you get 70 guys on these football teams. You put them through kicking challenges, passing challenges, punting challenges. You could bring in celebrities like Tom Brady, whoever, right? They get a limit. You might have a kicker out there throwing the ball through target. I just think it would actually be entertaining, and the winner gets to take home some NIL money for the team.
Hey, I mean, listen, we've got to cook up new and creative ideas, right? In the ever evolving landscape that is college football. Might as well get some great content out of it. I don't hate the idea. I don't hate the idea. I mean, Mr. Beast is, what's that show on Amazon that he's got? Not Survivor Games.
Beast Games.
Beast Games. That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, mix that in with Hard Knocks, and sure, I'd sign up to watch that. Right.
Yep.
Getting back to kind of the idea of what's next, right? The theme of this series, what's next for the future of G5, G6 football. The Big Ten and the SEC have been very vocal and on the nose now about, hey, yeah, like we want to determine the future of college football. What we say goes. Everybody else just kind of has to fall in line.
Right.
The most common thought out there is that we're headed towards an NFL light with however many teams, but that the traditional G5, G6 structure, the Sun Belt, Conference USA, the American, they'll be left out in the cold. What's your take on that? Like, where do you see this game evolving, digressing, however you want to put it, over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, a lot of it hinges on the TV partners. Actually, most of it, in my opinion, hinges on the TV partners. Obviously, the SEC and the Big Ten could always access private equity and things like that and do whatever they want. But traditionally speaking, ESPN has had a heavy hand in conference realignment, and even all the way down to the Sun Belt and the American Conference, who partner with ESPN. They've had their hand in some things. We'll just put it that way. And so it kind of depends what they want to do. And I have heard from some journalists in the group of six, and actually there's an article out there from Shane at JMU talking about what these media partners are looking to do and what some of the power brokers, will call it in college football, are wanting. And if they had it their way, you're right, it would be this NFL type break of the SEC and the Big Ten plus a few other schools. The other option, of course, would be to have a true P4G6 split, which, I could see that being a little bit more likely, just because there'd be some even, 70 teams, 68 teams kind of thing. It'd be a little more even that way. But as we've seen, the SEC and the Big Ten are not afraid to throw the ACC and the Big 12 under the bus. Some of the proposals that they've had for the college football playoff expansion have given themselves more bids than the ACC and the Big 12. So it just goes to show you how they look at those conferences. It's the same narrative that they've been pushing on the group of six now for the last decade. So in my opinion, it's only a matter of time before they would maybe want to break off further. So it could go different ways. Congress, if they get involved, maybe there's something there as well. And I'm kind of all over the place in what I think would be best for college football. My ideal solution that would never happen is the promotion relegation idea.
Oh yeah. You're talking to the choir here.
I just think that if you want to create primetime television college football the entire season, you expand the college football playoffs to 24 teams. Shoot me, I know. But seriously, 24 teams. You give access to every single conference champion, and then do whatever you want with the rest of the bids. Honestly, I don't care at that point. But give access for every conference champion. For all the media partners, you've just created national exposure for those conferences and your own football games the entire season. So if you have a playoff game that gets 4 million views instead of 6 million views, well, guess that you made up more than that 2 million the rest of the season. I can assure you that, on social media and on actual TV, right? So do that, or promotion relegation, stick with the 12-team model and see how it shakes out with some of these teams that traditionally have just not won anything at the Power 4 level. They've just been there and continue to exist with 3-9, 4-8 seasons.
Now, do you think that narrative that specific, because I'm right there with you. I think that a promotion relegation system for the integrity of the sport makes the most sense. We know that, in actuality, that's probably not going to happen. But do you think that narrative actually is kind of boosted by what Indiana has done these last 2 years, right? I mean, the losingest program in college football history, suddenly they get the right coach and the right personnel in there, and 2 seasons later, they complete a perfect campaign. Like, shouldn't that be, if we are trying to build an ecosystem, if we are pandering to the TV execs and the powers that, for lack of a better term, just do not care about tradition, only other than it makes them money, isn't that the storyline that you would want to embrace as a TV executive? Like, hey, give me more of that, right?
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's rare. Like, I don't know if you're a soccer guy or not, but I keep up with the Premier League, right? And Leicester City, actually, this was like 2016, decade ago. So it doesn't happen very often. They got promoted to the Premier League and then they won. Now they got some new players on the team, because when you move up, you get access to new guys, right? That's just how it works. So this idea, when people say, oh, well, Boise State couldn't compete in the Big 12. I would argue that they probably already could compete in the Big 12, but if they were in the Big 12, recruits, financial resources, TV, all of that kind of stuff, they get access to the same things that everybody else gets access to, but you have a market that actually cares about football and fans that are at football games creating a home field environment. That's a dangerous team right there. So I don't buy the narrative that so-and-so couldn't compete. So yeah, if you were a college football fan, TV executives, the only risk you run with promotion relegation is if you don't set it up the right way, you could lose some of those rivalries when inevitably, one of the Texas teams gets relegated and now they're not playing, so-and-so right. Or in an insane scenario, what if Oklahoma gets relegated and now what happens to the Texas-Oklahoma game, right? So you'd have to set it up the right way, but there's a reason that idea is not popular amongst the Power 4 administrations. So
yeah, no doubt. Suddenly a little bit of accountability and everybody starts shaking in their boots. Well, okay, so two things off of that. Like, one, I completely agree with you. I think that the folks that are so short-sighted and say, hey, a Boise State couldn't compete, a James Madison couldn't compete in the ACC, something of that nature, right? All of conference realignment and the TCUs and the Utahs, like these programs that we know as successful programs today didn't always start in the biggest and best conferences, right? I mean, TCU was homeless there for a long time, right? I mean, they were all the way out in the WAC for a little bit.
Yeah.
And obviously now, went to national championship, haven't even come close to hitting that ceiling since. But that idea, I think, is just proven to be very untrue for what a lot of arguments I see get thrown around on Twitter. They just quite simply don't know their history. But given, some of these ideas that we've thrown around, the promotion, the relegation, like everything that we've talked about so far, and a lot of these ideas that you see on college football Twitter, we would watch, right? We, the fans, would watch that. And so again, going back to the idea of, the TV execs have all the power, at least the perceived power, but what we watch ultimately determines the future of the sport. Yeah. So if there are all of these ideas floating around that seem much better than what we currently have, and if we feel like we have some half-baked, ill-thought-out version of college football right now, what is the priority of college football right now? Is it to win a national championship? Is it to stay relevant and make as much money from donors and businesses? Like, what is the point of college football?
That's a loaded question.
It is.
What is the point of college football? Well, let me make the statement that college football and the coverage of college football cannot be about catering to the same 5 to 6 teams every single season. That's not sustainable. That's never been sustainable. And why we've gotten on that the last few years is beyond me, right? So I like seeing teams like Indiana and actually just look at the coverage that they got when they started winning games in the playoffs this year. And everybody's like, they're undefeated. They beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. The sky's the limit, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody, if you're like, I mean, maybe not, but everybody I talked to was watching games because it's like Indiana could do the unthinkable, right? If you have Ohio State and Texas playing each other again, or Clemson and Alabama, if you go back to the early CFP days, I honestly, you could say that for some people that creates the whole rematch buzz around the game. But honestly, I think the repetitiveness of that kind of hurts the sport as a whole, right? So I think the priority for college football right now should be coverage of all 138 FBS teams, not 10 FBS teams, not the Blue Bloods, but every single FBS team. And until there is a split, which may be inevitable, I think that should be the priority of every person like you that has a podcast, every media partner. It doesn't make sense to sabotage your own media values by not providing good coverage for every single team so that college football fans that turn on the TV any given day can know what the heck's going on.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. It does make me wonder behind the scenes, like what is the driving factor behind extending the season out, right? I mean, we're going to have the national championship this next year is going to be just before Valentine's Day, it feels like, right? I mean, pitchers and catchers are reporting to spring training by the time we get out to Vegas. Yeah, it's frustrating because it does feel like as many details as there are and as many nuanced angles of attack you could take, it feels like the powers that be, the suits that pull the levers, just continue to act in the interest of 5 or 6 programs, not the health of college football. And I know we've had discussions about this on Twitter. Like, that concerns me long term for the health of this sport. It feels like cut bait, or actually run this sport like it's a cohesive unit, not just, hey, we love these 3 conferences over here and the rest of you guys just get to have participation ribbons. That certainly doesn't seem like a great business model, but then again, they keep printing money. So with all of that aside, talk to me about what we should be excited about for 2026, group of 5, group of 6, football specifically. Like, what just fires you up here into March and has you ready for week 0 and week 1?
Well, now that we know that there's only one spot for the group of 6 in the college football playoffs, I mean, this is the recognition that there is a level of scaling back the attention that the group of 6 is going to receive this year. And that's unfortunate for all of these. A lot of them are small town college football type of towns, right?
Right.
So I'm most excited, though, about North Dakota State. I'm sure that's an answer that a lot of people would give, but
Sure.
You have the most successful FCS program of all time joining the FBS. What are they capable of? I think they could win. Well, I don't know. I guess they're not eligible. I'm sure that's going to be challenged for postseason play.
Yes, throw the flag now.
Yeah. I will vouch for them. Just like I was willing to vouch for JMU, even as a Marshall fan a few years ago, because if you're a good team, there's no reason why you shouldn't be allowed to compete in a conference championship game or a bowl game. Right. So I think that there is a legitimate chance that North Dakota State could come into the FBS, come into the Mountain West Conference, and win it the first year. They actually got a tough draw on their schedule, I think. But if they can manage that, I think the sky's the limit for them, and I'm excited to see how they compete in year 1 in the FBS. So I certainly don't think that there's going to be a fall off there, just because if you look at their metrics, the ones that combine FBS and FCS teams, they're always in the top 10, basically, of the group of 6 in those metrics. So I think that's what I'm most excited for this season. The other thing would be seeing how the American Conference handles all of the turnover.
Yeah.
You had quite a few coaches leave, went to the SEC, took some players with them. You had North Texas is basically Oklahoma State now, right? So, I'll be interested to see how North Texas competes in the Big 12 this season. But the American as a whole is going to have a lot of change. You had Charles Huff join at Memphis. I think Memphis is going to be an interesting team to watch this season. On the surface, I'm questioning the hire at Tulane, honestly, just because the history that Will Hall had with Southern Miss wasn't great. And so you would think that Tulane would want to keep the momentum going with the past couple of coaches that they've had. That's something to keep an eye on. Do they fall back to their previous ways and what they were from 2001 to 2021? I'm making up the years there, but basically, there was no success, right? And then all of a sudden they win the Cotton Bowl, and they've been good since. So I'm watching North Dakota State in the American Conference. I'll keep it short with that.
Have you fully gotten used to North Dakota State being in the Mountain West and Sacramento State being in the MAC yet?
No. And I know that they're each in those conferences, but as I'm speaking out loud, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense that North Dakota State is in this one, and the one that's further west is the only West team in that one. And I honestly thought that South Dakota State and North Dakota State could have joined the MAC, and the MAC would have been in a great spot, right? Sure. So as I'm talking, I'm like,
is that right?
That doesn't. I know that's right, but it doesn't make sense. Yeah. And that's where we're at.
That's college football. Yeah. Yes, that is 100. You just described the whole sport. I know that's factually correct, but what? Yeah. Take us out west as well. I know you're interested to see how this newly resuscitated Pac-12 is going to look. I mean, Texas State now, evidently the Lone Star State has a coastal footprint, I guess.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the Pac-12 here as we round out this episode.
The Pac-12 is an interesting storyline for this season because I think the conference, when they first announced the teams prior to Texas State, everybody was really trying to push it as a power conference, right? I was early to debunk the metrics on that. Yes. The little bit of cherry picking going on there, and listen, I respect it. I wish that some teams, conferences would do a little bit more on the PR front. Okay, when you have good teams in the conference, you push them. So yes. I don't blame them for the attempt there, and that's why I think just a side comment. I use the group of 6 label and the Power 4 label now because, one, it's easier for conversation. Everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yes.
I don't think it's degrading in any way. I just think that the reality is there are 4 conferences known as the autonomy conferences that literally have power. The power word in Power 4 is literal for me. Yeah. So in the other 6 grouped together are the group of 6. They're just the other ones, right? That don't have the power and the legislation and all that kind of stuff going for them. So that's my side comment. So the Pac-12, welcome to the group of 6, right? Boise State's got to be the front runner. I mean, it seems like they just win everything. Yeah. Somebody else will finally win the Mountain West this season. The good news for the Mountain West Conference is that UNLV might finally win one there. But, I think Boise State's obviously the favorite. They're able to keep some of their talent. They've kept the coaches for the most part. So I think when you have some stability in that regard, it kind of helps you get off to a good start. And if you can start the season with some momentum and avoid injuries, because that's what got them into a little bit of trouble last year.
Yep, sure.
And which is why when I was putting out my group of 5 top 25, I wasn't crushing them for the losses just because I knew they were without their starting quarterback. And even though he's kind of a game manager type of quarterback, if you lose your game manager, it's like losing a decent point guard, right? So it's hard to win football games that way. But anyways, Boise State, I think, will Oregon State make a recovery from whatever happened last year is another thing to consider. That was shocking. And then Texas State, how do they compete against the Pac-12 where the resources are better than what they're used to in the Sun Belt West? They did okay in the Sun Belt West, but they never really came close to winning the Sun Belt Conference. And I think they were the losingest team over the last, decade or whatever in the Sun Belt. So it's not a great pickup based on the historic success for the Pac-12, but the market is good. The fan base seems to be on board with the future of the program. So, and as long as you have an administration that cares about athletics, I think you're primed for success in this era of college football.
Yeah, I mean, speaking as a native Texan, Texas State used to be a program that you kind of forgot they played scholarship athletics. There was just no investment. The teams were terrible. And then, as they made that announcement to join the Pac, there was getting the wagons circled. Hey, we're committing X amount of dollars. The administration is aligned on these priorities, and that synced up with the Pac and et cetera. Last season, a little bit of a tough swan song in the Sun Belt. We'll see if they can figure out what they're going to do, offensively, if they can ever figure out how to play defense. Those are prerequisites to competing for a conference championship. Yeah, a little bit. But yes, certainly interesting conference footprint. Conference footprints obviously don't matter anymore, but it does make for an interesting island of misfit toys, I think. And yeah, Oregon State and Washington State, like what do they do this next season? We had Ryan Harlan, who covers Oregon State for our preseason last year, and he made the case for 9-3 at one point. And I was like, at the moment that feels a little optimistic, but hey, it's preseason, hopium flows. And then just to watch how much bad luck they ran into, how many trap doors they fell down kind of on their own volition, right? It's like the Tom and Jerry cartoon where Tom is just stepping on the rake over and over and over again. Like that was Oregon State football last year. So, the bar is low the bar is low, but I agree with you. I think Boise State should be, the front runner out there. Casey, this has been fantastic. I'm fired up for G6 football. I cannot wait we're going to do all the deep dives as we do. To your point, there's a reason why our motto is covering all 138 teams now, because we agree. Every fan base, every team is somebody's favorite team, and we want to treat it like that. And we believe that's what makes college football great. So you're obviously aligned with that. For folks that may be listening to the show that have not seen you over on Twitter, where can they find your content at?
Yeah, primarily you can find me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at the Herd Bros. I cover unashamedly cover the Group of Six primarily.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I don't watch other college football. It just means that my priority is making up for the deficit that the Group of Six faces in the rest of the media. Right. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, you can follow me on X at the Herd Bros.
Are you still going to do another Twitch stream this year when the new college football game drops?
Now that my setup is back, I'm definitely considering some other content options. We'll just, I'll leave it at that. I think that there's some new things that you might see from me this year. So.
Awesome, man. Well, we can't wait. Fantastic follow as always at the Herd Bros. Definitely go check him out. Casey, this was a blast to talk football with you here tonight. Can't wait to do it again with you soon. And really, really excited about the storylines that we get to watch unfold as we get closer to week one and beyond.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, to the Jimmies and Joes who stuck around to the end of the video, the end of the podcast, thanks so much for rocking with us. Really appreciate everything that you guys are doing to support the channel, even here in the off season. Go check out our Substack. You'll find Casey's work. JD from the North Texas Eagle also contributed to that article, so make sure you give that a read. And for Casey, myself, Mitch Mason, thanks so much for watching. Until next time, so long, everybody.